I'm Niamh Cassidy, a former social care worker who, after having my own children, found a calling as a childbirth educator and lactation consultant. Back when I started this journey, I faced the same challenges many of you might be experiencing right now, struggling to get enough clients to make my business viable long term. I knew in my heart that I had the skills and knowledge to make a difference, but the thought of marketing and selling left me feeling a bit uneasy. I didn't want to compromise my authenticity and values just to attract clients. I invested in trainings and mentorships, and I tried various strategies that I learned, but it often felt like I couldn't implement a lot of it because what I was being taught didn't match my values as a birth and postpartum worker. That's when I decided to take matters into my own hand. I embarked on a mission to learn, to experiment, and to find ethical and authentic ways to share my expertise, support my clients, and build a sustainable practice. Today, I'm proud to say that I run a thriving private practice, and I'm here to share my insights with all of you to help you to do the same. Join me on this journey as I help you bridge the gap between your passion for supporting new parents and the success you deserve. Together, we'll discover the power of ethical, authentic, and effective approaches, not only to make a living, but also to make a positive impact in the world of birth and postnatal care. Let's get started on this empowering journey together. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Pregnancy and Postnatal Entrepreneurs Collective podcast. Today I am in conversation with Mariana Henninger, and Mariana is a seasoned EMMY Award-winning documentary filmmaker who has taken her passion and experience in intimate and emotion-driven personal storytelling to help entrepreneurs hone in on their story and create one video that revolutionizes their business. I had so much fun interviewing Mariana, and I can't believe how much I learned and how much you are all going to take from this. So let's dive in. Hi, Mariana. It's really nice to have you on the podcast today. So thank you very much for joining us. And I'm really, really excited to listen to what you have to say about storytelling and brand and how we can use that in our business. So where will we start? Where do you want to go?
Sure. I mean, I can start a little bit about what I focus on specifically within the realm of storytelling and branding, which is brand videos. So my background is as a documentary filmmaker. I have an Emmy and 2 nominations, and I've been doing this for a long time. It's kind of my passion, the thing that I'm like, oh my gosh, I get paid to do this. I was super lucky to have kind of tapped into that early on. I've been doing it for about 15 years. And last year I decided to combine my 2 passions, which documentary filmmaking, personal, intimate, really emotion-driven storytelling in video, with my other passion, which was kind of hidden for so many years, but it's business and entrepreneurship and sales and marketing and all that good stuff that I could honestly always thinking like, oh my gosh, I get paid to do this. I get paid to learn this. I get paid to teach this. So brand videos are basically the 2 to 4 minute video that tells your story, the parts of your story that resonate with your audience. The idea is to accelerate trust, build that trust so much faster so that somebody coming into your universe is never going to confuse you with anyone ever again. You're going to be seen as a friend, not just an expert. And ultimately, from a business perspective, you're going to make sales faster. So it's going to be a lot faster from discovering you to actually trusting you and buying from you.
Absolutely. And I love the way you were talking about kind of bringing your passions together. And I think a lot of people who come into birth work, that a lot of it has come from their own journeys, their own experiences, and then they end up wanting to share what they've learned or help people in ways that either they were helped or in ways that they weren't helped. But often a lot of people who are in kind of birth and postpartum work, business end of it is probably the bit they find trickier, and they can find it hard as well and I know I found it hard when I started kind of put myself out there to be on camera and to be front facing like that. So why is it important to be able to do that?
Yeah, I think it's just, thinking about how you work with clients. First of all, I love what you guys do. I had kind of an interesting birth experience because I gave birth to my son during the pandemic. Really wish I had an in-person doula. We just weren't doing that at the time. It was like mid 2020 in the thick of it. So I could tell all sorts of crazy stories about my birthing journey. And I appreciate the work that you guys do so much because of that. But I actually wanted to respond to two things you said there. I'll respond to your question. But the first thing you mentioned was that a lot of folks are teaching postpartum and prenatal and, everything around birthing from a personal experience, right? And this is a really easy story to work with because more likely than not, you have been through things or you really understand things that your audience is going through. And that's ultimately what makes you an amazing coach, is when you really have that understanding of the pain points and the desires of your audience. So that applies to all businesses, right? But if you take your story and just see it, and this kind of answers your second question of like, what if I'm hesitant to be on camera and I don't like being on camera and all these things? Your body, your face is just a vehicle for your message. So you kind of have to look at it as a business tool. You have to think, would you ever work with a mother without like having that interaction? That is such an important piece of coaching work, is connecting with that other human who gets you and who is going to help you through this situation. And so the best exercise to kind of help overcome this hesitation of being on camera is just thinking that you're talking to that one perfect client, that one that you love to work with, they love to work with you, and just kind of keep her, front and center. You're talking to her the whole time. And if you're talking to her and addressing her pain points and kind of crafting your story in a way that resonates with her, which is what you do for a brand video, it's just going to happen so much naturally. Another thing I'll point out about brand videos, which I'm obsessed with, obviously, is that it's one video that you create. So I do recommend that over time you get over that hesitation and you show up often for your audience. But if you're not there yet, the wonderful thing about the brand video is that it's one video that you create that's going to work for you for the rest of your business. It's going to bring that message to your audience every time they watch it. And it's going to shape the way that they see you. It's going to frame the way that they see you from here on out. So the idea is that they watch your brand video kind of in the beginning of your funnel, if you're used to that terminology, and then everything that they see from you afterwards, your emails, your showing up on social media or your messaging or whatever it may be, it's framed through the lens of that brand video so that now they're hearing from Neve, their friend, and not just another coach, not just somebody else that they happen to follow. And who is this person again? And, oh, I guess she's an expert, because that's what we love to do, is just like show our expertise, right? But no, instead you're like the friend they trust who happens to be an expert, who happens to be somebody that they enjoy and connect with.
And how do you support people, or what tips do you have, even if people were thinking of making their own brand video, what to put in it?
This is what I work with my students a lot. And so the process is quite simple. How hard it is kind of depends on how much of this work you've done before in your business, which is picking that one story that has emotional touch points, is what I call them. It's like there are enough parts of that story that resonate with your audience. So question to think about even before you really start crafting that story is thinking about, what feeling do I want my audience to have at the end of watching this brand video? The entire purpose of the brand video, it's not vanity, which if folks are already kind of hesitant and shy to be on camera, that's probably not a consideration to begin with. But it's not about you. It's not about anything but being this conversion tool from a business perspective and from your audience's perspective, a vehicle through which they connect with you emotionally, right? And so it's understanding, what is that feeling that I want my audience to have? Let's call her Jane. Jane is your pregnant mom that you're helping as a coach. What do I want Jane to feel at the end of watching this brand video? And the way to answer that question is to really understand how the other Janes that you've helped before, how they feel right before buying your program. What are the check marks, the boxes that they had to tick emotionally to feel like you're the person that they trust? We kind of want that sort of mama bear feeling. We want to feel taken care of. We want to feel understood. Having been a pregnant mom myself, that's what I wanted. I wanted to feel like somebody had me, took care of me. And so those are all the things that we want to tap to. And very importantly for most coaches, and I'm guessing for you guys as well, is just knowing that this person understood what I was going through. So to answer your question, let's think about, what is your story? For the most part, if you're a coach, you have what I call an overcome story. You had an experience that you overcame, or you kind of learned how to do this better, or like, what are the ways that can help me go through this process and therefore can help other women go through this process too. More often than not, you're going to have this sort of overcome story, which is very simple to create, which is an old normal. And then something happens and then you have a new normal. And in that new normal, you have peace, you have the things that you're looking for, right? You have tranquility, you have health, you have an awesome baby, whatever that sort of new life looks like for you. It obviously for every profession is different, but that's kind of the structure that you use to tell your story. And along the way, as you're crafting every single part of that story, you're thinking about what resonates. You're thinking about what have you said to your audience that they've responded with, like, oh, yes. Those are the things you want to like collect in a glass jar.
Yeah. And I think that's a really helpful tip. What have you said before that has made people feel good? Because most of my audience listen to this podcast, they're providing services to pregnant women or to postnatal families, and we will all have that moment. So I do breastfeeding support where I'll be sitting with a woman or a family and we'll be working through something, and you get that aha moment or that oh, that's what I was hoping for, and
Yes.
sometimes it's through words, sometimes it's through actions. But if what you're saying, I think, is that if people can use their experiences they've had already and words and things that they've shared with people already, and then they can bring that into this story to help more people know that they're the right person for them.
Because that's the feeling you want to achieve at the end of that, right? You want to feel the feeling of I'm understood, of like this person gets me, she gets me. Again, specifically for your audience might be different than for others, but in general, if you're looking for a coach, those are kind of the feelings that you want to bring into people. And then like from a very practical standpoint, the most simple of brand videos is you telling that story on camera. It doesn't have to be more than that. What I teach is how to do this with really interesting and compelling visuals, because the more of these sort of assets that you bring to the brand video, the more you create what's called a narrative transportation. Narrative transportation is kind of like the gold mine in this whole process. It's the magic touch, which is when your audience is so transported by your story, they're in only thinking about that part of the brain that's processing emotions. And the more they're in that world, the less they're in the world of like, how much does this cost? Does this program fit my needs? Do I have the time? Does this? The questions the objections all sort of crumble when we're drawn to this person and we feel it. 95% of the purchasing decisions are made in the subconscious, according to a Harvard Business School study. And so that's where your feelings are. That's where that emotional connection is.
And I think for people who are working in this kind of industry, where I mentioned at the start, we can be a bit anxious maybe about putting ourselves out there, about selling sometimes as well. I think some of the things that are really coming up for me is about how we're using our own stories. We're using it to show that we care, to show that we have an understanding of their challenges and how we can support them. And that it's so that we can provide that service that helps that person. And I think if we can change your frame of mind around that, this is to provide the service, it's to help somebody, rather than when you said earlier as well, it's not about you, it's not about ego or whatever. I think hopefully that will help people overcome maybe some of those blocks that can make it a bit harder for them to think about this.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great way to frame it, actually. It's like thinking about this as a service to your audience. Is that one person that you're going to help because they've connected with you and your story. So that's a great way to frame it.
And if people are creating brand videos, even how long should they be, or how short should they be, or what other kind of tips and tricks might you have?
A typical brand video, I recommend staying around 2 to 4 minutes. We usually land around like the 3.5 minutes is really the sweet spot. Shorter is better, actually, like take away the fat is kind of the term that we use in filmmaking and editing, is like really think about every single thing that you're saying and how it should move that emotional connection forward. And then in terms of filming, if you are ready to think about compelling visuals to add to your story, you want to think about things that are creative and metaphorically illustrating those feelings. So the thing that you don't want to see, and most of us like online entrepreneurs, we're behind our laptop, right? That's a thing you want to maybe see for like 2 to 3 minutes. Another thing you don't want to do is talk about your offer. It's not a marketing video. your brand video really is your story. It's about emotional connection. And what you can do is kind of frame it at the end as sort of, this is your mission, right? So we're focusing on your values, your experience, your personality. All of that is like front and center. And then, sort of as a natural extension or progress of your story is that now you help other women, because this is the thing you can't help but do. This is what they're meant to do because they're so passionate and they love this so much. That's kind of a gentle way for you to sort of indicate that you do have an offer, that you do help other women do this or in this situation. But we're not saying like, oh, my program is this and this and this, or this is how I help women. This is how much it costs, or click here. There's no call to action. The call to action is like, we're connected emotionally forever. A really great brand video, people will watch and they'll never, ever forget you. Like they will connect with you forever. And that's like, to me, the superpower of the brand video. It's that one video that you watch about someone. Think about a good movie that you watch, and those are mostly fiction, right? This is why I love documentaries. It's like a good documentary will make you see the world in a different way. You'll never be able to see, somebody that resembles that person or that has a similar story and not think about that documentary that you watched and sort of be impacted in that way. I could go on forever.
It sounds like kind of a really lovely way for potential clients to get to know us, to, as you say, resonate with us. And something that I talk about a lot myself is around how when we, in particular in the work that we do, that we're working with such vulnerable people, they're often inviting us into their homes or even into their birth space, in very, very personal circumstances that they have to give over a lot of themselves to us. So it's important that we're able to give some of ourselves to them too, so that they can feel that they know us and that it's a relationship rather than a transaction or something else.
I love that. That is such really beautiful insight for coaches in general. But yeah, I can, especially a woman in a vulnerable circumstance like pre-motherhood or post-motherhood. Here's what happens so many times is that we're so focused on serving, which is great. We should be focused on their experience. How can we help them? What are the things that will make their lives better? Absolutely, don't change that. However, part of that serving is the relationship, is them knowing what values drive you to do what you do. And having that connection is just that extra layer of that service that will make it so much more special. They're not just getting help from an expert. They're really forming this relationship with a friend who happens to be an expert and who's going to help them so much more.
Feeling stuck in your birth work business, posting nonstop, answering DMs, juggling admin, but still not getting the clients you want? It doesn't have to be this way. I've put together the Birth Workers Business Playbook, a free guide with 3 simple systems to help you get visible without spending all day online, book clients with ease, no more ghosting, streamline your admin so you can focus on what you do best. These are the exact systems I wish I had when I started, and now they're yours, totally free. Download the Birth Workers Business Playbook now and start growing your business with ease. Head to the show notes to get your link for your free copy. Because it's very easy, relatively, to build a website that says, here are the services I provide, and this is my name, and these are my qualifications. And then to go on your social media and say, here are some quotes that I like, and here are the services that I provide. But it's hard for someone to get to know you with just that, isn't it?
Yes, no, absolutely. The way that I kind of analyze what most of us do in the online business space, and by that I mean if you're online for any part of your business, and the way that I see it is that we're microdosing our audience with little bits of our personality. So think about most of the people you follow on social media. Half of them you probably don't really remember who they are. Most of them you probably don't know who they are. The idea that you have to consume a ton of their content to really kind of piece together who they are and what it is that they do and little bits about them, it's so backwards to me. Like instead, when you could have one video that sort of introduces, kind of like what we're doing here, or if you're on a Zoom call with somebody where you get to know them and you kind of exchange your story, just think about how that frames every time you see them again, every time they show up in your inbox, every time that you see them on social media or whatever that interaction might be. It's framed by that introduction that you had, that connection that you formed. And so we really should stop microdosing our audience, like stop making them do the work of trying to piece together who we are. Let's just like give it to them in one video. It's not the focus of what you put out there. It really isn't. But by doing this, they will get to know you so much better. They'll never confuse you with anyone else. To your point, you've got a website that tells people what you do, your qualifications, and who you offer. Congratulations, you sound like thousands of other people. And that doesn't set you apart. That won't cut it.
And when someone does make a brand video, where does it live? What do they do with it?
That's the second most asked question, which is, it's a great question, because how actually am I going to use this? So the brand videos should live in 5 different places. Some of them are top of funnel, and one of them is kind of bottom of funnel if you're into business funnels. The first place is your email signature. So that is where if you're emailing your audience, essentially anyone who hears from you over email should watch your brand video, and it should live right there in your email signature. The second place is pinned to the top of your social media profile. This is for everyone who's coming to you via social media, or they saw like you commented on it in a group or something, and they're clicking through and they're landing on your page. Your brand video should be pinned right there. Again, you want people to see your brand video as soon as possible so that you're memorable from the get-go. And then everything that comes after that is framed within that story. It's seen through that lens. The third place is your homepage. Obvious place if you're a coach, because you're the face of your brand. You are your brand if you're a coach most of the time. This is why we're coming to a coach, because we want a human. And so it should live right there on your homepage, but also your About Me page. So your About Me page is the second most visited page on your website. People are going there. It's because they actually want to learn about you. Oh my gosh, please don't. It frustrates me to no end when I see an About Me page. It's like, this is what I can do for you. Like, no, I actually want to know who you are. That's why I'm here on this page in particular. And then the last place is your sales page. So if you do have a section on your sales page, which most coaches will have, which is kind of a meet the teacher, or here's a little blurb about me, should be pretty far down on your sales page. At this point, you really are kind of focusing your copy on your offer and transformation. I'm not changing any of that because that really works, but it might just be that kicker at the end of the sales page. If they've gotten all the way down, they haven't clicked yet, remembering your story, remembering your values, what makes you different. It's the thing that makes you stand out, is your story of who you are. That is the last recommended place, is just that bottom of your sales page where you would be kind of reintroducing yourself, reminding people why they're there, reminding people that you're the right person for them. If you are, if you're not, that's okay. That's the brand video will also help send people along to somebody else if they're not the right fit for you.
Absolutely. And I think that's really important, and something that we talk about a lot is around, we're not right for everybody, and that's okay, because there's plenty of us out there, and it's okay if someone else is going to be the right provider for them.
Absolutely.
Now, there's a few questions in my head, because I know people who are listening will be thinking the same thing, and you might not be the right person, but I'm going to ask you anyway. When you say put it in your email signature, does that mean the video lives in your email signature, or a link to the video lives in your email signature?
Generally a link. You can also do a little thumbnail or a little GIF. It shouldn't like completely disrupt your email signature if you have like a little graphic there, kind of like how I do. It can be as simple as a link, like watch my story, or watch why I became a postpartum coach, or whatever the case may be. Just something to kind of hook people in. And, sometimes I recommend putting the length of the video in parentheses. So like 3 minutes only, or something like that. It doesn't even have to be that long. It could be like 3 and a quotation mark, and people know that's like 3 minutes. So they're not, sometimes you hesitate clicking on something. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to get myself into? Another tab in my browser. So sometimes it helps. You can just kind of experiment with that. So you don't have to embed the actual video in your email signature.
And I knew that was a question that would come up. And then on your landing page, or your home page, should that be fully embedded, or is a pop-up better, or what kind of works do you think?
Definitely fully embedded there. Yeah, you want to make it super easy for people to click on it and watch it, and not even feel like they're watching, again, a promotional video or anything like that. I recommend a really good thumbnail, usually with your face on it, or something like really intriguing about your story. Again, this is where compelling visuals will come in super handy. There's no kind of generic advice there. It really is just something that connects with your story, but ideally it will have your face sort of on the thumbnail. The way that some of my students do this is they'll preface it on top and saying like, my story, ... or this is how I became, or this is what led me here, ...
Have you any other kind of final tips or any kind of major things that we haven't covered that you think are really important for people to know?
I think a lot of people sometimes ask, like, how do I know that I have a compelling story? How do I know what parts of my story to tell? The first one in particular, I encourage you so much to overcome the idea that your story is not compelling. And I'm guessing most coaches, they do know they kind of have a really good story. But if you don't, let's say you're not convinced, at the end of the day, people want to connect with you. And your story is just kind of the vehicle for them to connect with you. And the idea again is just thinking about what it is about your personality. So let's say you don't have that overcome story that really kind of matches in sync with the person that you're helping. Dive deep into your passion, right? Dive deep into why you're doing this, what your values are. So those are the things that people will connect with. So maybe, the particulars of the circumstances that you experience don't exactly align with your audience. Think about how you hire a coach. Think about how you want to work with somebody, even like if they're coming in to like fix something in your house. Just by knowing them, that just makes a huge, huge difference. So let alone somebody who's going to be your coach in such a, like you said, vulnerable moment in your life. Just understanding your values, your personality, your mission, those are the things that will connect with people. So the idea that you don't have a compelling story is completely false.
I think that's really lovely as well, because I know as birth workers and lactation workers have that passion and they're so good at what they do, because we wouldn't do this work if we weren't passionate about it, And one of the big reasons why I went about creating the collective is that I had so many people who were great at what they did, but weren't able to serve enough people because they weren't able at the business end, so this message wasn't getting out there. When people met them, they wanted to be with them, but they weren't getting that. They weren't getting that far. So the brand video sounds like a really good way to help bridge that gap, to help get them to that place. If people who are anxious about it think about it in the way that you said, in that you're conveying your passion. Because I know if I invite any doula or any childbirth educator out for coffee and we sit down and I say, why do you do what you do? They're going to be able to give me an amazing, compelling story of why they do what they do. It's the getting over the saying it to a camera or putting it out there rather than it being conversational. Do you have any tips on how you help people with that element of it, I suppose?
I think the best tip is to write your story down and really focus on the words, and you can make it conversational. Act like you are, really pretend you're just writing a journal entry to yourself, or imagine yourself in that perfect metaphor that you just created for us, which is you're in a coffee shop with that person and with a friend, with somebody that you trust, with, somebody that you're close to. And so write the words that you would be saying to them. And maybe what helps is to record those words in conversation and then write them down. And once you have them written down, print it out, or maybe you've handwritten them, just practice saying them over and over, practice them in the mirror. In a camera, we're looking into kind of like the barrel of a lens. It's not sexy, but the more that you get used to saying those words, the easier they will come. And really feel what you're saying. That's my biggest recommendation, is that you're not conveying information. You're not trying to teach something. You're reliving those feelings. You're really embodying the drive that you have for what you do. And that should get you at least like most of the way there. And if not, like work with somebody else, have them give you feedback. Just keep practicing it in that sort of framework, and it will get easier for sure.
I think that's lovely. And it's the really helpful tips as well around writing as if it's a journal, and then even kind of getting the bit of practice in. So Mariana, if people want to find out more about brand videos or about what you do, where is the best place to find you?
Yeah, a great place to start is the Brand Video Starter Guide. It just lives right on my website, brandmagnetic.com. I'm also most active on Instagram. So if you're on there, feel free to connect with me. I'm just at BrandMagnetic, 2 words put together. The Brand Video Starter Guide is a really great way to start, just on brandmagnetic.com.
And I know when people land on your homepage, they're going to see that wonderful little video of your head in the corner to get an idea about what you were talking about earlier on. So thank you so much for joining me. I know there's going to be a load of insight for people in what you've kind of brought to us and talked us through, and hopefully a lot of reflection for people to say, well, maybe I can do this.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much again. And for everyone who's listening, thank you for listening. And we will be back next week and we'll talk to you then. Bye-bye. Don't forget to download your totally free copy of the Birth Workers Business Playbook, now available for a limited time only. So check out the show notes to get your link and get your copy.